Alright, we are live. It's a couple of minutes before noon when I promised to do a video. So I am going to offer some general thoughts and then we'll go ahead and proceed. So the last day of SHOT Show, I normally try to just kind of look around in little small places, the place I normally would not visit, to see if there's anything new and innovative is happening there, right? Because it's, I know I'm a snob, but there are some manufacturers I just don't visit. Like, I don't go to visit Barska. I mean, good for them. They're clearly doing well, etc. I've never seen a Barska product that was worth buying. I don't usually visit Leapers or UTG, whatever they are. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But just roaming around, usually on the bottom floor of SHOT Show during the last day, often produces some interesting results. Some things like small creative people who create before large companies buy them and kill all innovation are usually down there. And this time I didn't get to do it as much as possible, stuck in meetings again. But I found a couple of things that was just really, really cool, right? That I really enjoyed. So I'll go over that at day 4, and then I'll offer some thoughts on what I think the general trends are that I saw at SHOT. Okay. So let's see what was interesting. I stumbled onto this company called Lunatech. I don't know how well you can see it. I think the selfie camera that I'm using in my phone reverses the image, so you can't see it too well. Lunatech is interesting. It seems like it's a small company. It's almost like a think tank, but they are making products. They generally OEM for other people, and the thing that got my interest is something they call the Sapphire Barrel System. And what Sapphire Barrel Systems is, they basically take a steel barrel of some reasonably thin diameter and sleeve it with their proprietary material, which is some version of aluminum silicon carbide something that makes it, compared to a bullet, a thicker barrel of the same diameter, about 30% lighter, like 300% stiffer, and drastically increases thermal conductivity, so it doesn't get hot, and it prevents the barrel from deforming when it warms up. They are quoting amazing things in terms of how light it is, how accurate it is, how wonderful it is, and all that. Everybody does. But I like innovative barrel technologies. I have a proof carbon barrel, which I think is remarkable. But with every carbon barrel I've tried to date, as you keep shooting, the groups start opening up, right? So the proof barrel I have does not shift zero, but as it gets hot, the groups open up. I've got a straight jacket barrel. I've got a Dracos 243 barrel. I'll start messing with it. It's a nice barrel, but it's really big, really heavy. These guys are promising something that might be better, but I don't think it's in production yet. I know they're talking to a couple of people to OEM barrels for them, so I will really keep an eye on them. I mean, they had a 50 BMG there with their, sort of a, it's not wrapped, what we'll call it Sapphire gun barrel, whatever. With their barrel, it was an 18-pound 50 BMG that they swear just doesn't get hot. These guys generally do a lot of interesting things with installation. On their Instagram, there is a video of a guy firing out of an AR, holding his hand on a suppressor and not getting burned. Some sort of weird installation. They also do frangible bullets. They do all sorts of interesting things. I was pretty impressed. So Lunatech Industries, I will post some pictures and stuff on my Instagram, and I'll add them to my SHOT Show write-up. I thought it was interesting. As I do this, the gardener is outside. I hope it doesn't screw up the sound too much. I went and visited this company called PCP Tactical, polymer ammo, nothing really interesting available to a consumer yet. Night Sight, British company. In the past, I walked by. They do these weird things. You kind of put a camera behind the scope, so it's for shooting something at night. I think it is a solution looking for a problem, but they had a new version of that gadget that retains the ability to look through the scope while adding some of the digital low light stuff. Now that I like. So I like this fusion devices. We'll talk about that later. I thought that was a good idea, right? So I'm not convinced I like the execution, and it's new, so we'll look at it and see. So that was really interesting. Another company I finally made it out to was Primary Arms. So Primary Arms started out small, but now Primary Arms is sort of a big deal. I think in the small prism scopes and all that, primarily because of the reticles, I don't want to say if they're kicking everybody's ass, but they're really doing some damage, and they're getting bigger. Freaking Gardner. They're getting bigger and they're getting better. They have sort of rebranded a little bit how they do different product levels, and they have PL, Platinum, GL, Gold, SL, Silver, and CLC stands for Classic. Basically, Platinum stuff is from Japan, Light Optics Works. Gold stuff is from the Philippines. There are two main suppliers in the Philippines, Asia Optical and Kenco. They both make pretty good stuff. There are some variances. It's not the same stuff, but they're both competent. To me, PA stuff looks like it's coming from Asia Optical. It doesn't mean anything good or bad. It's just observation. Looks like decent stuff. The strength of the PA line has always been reticles. They take the horseshoe and do some range finding with it. The ACSS reticle is extremely popular, but ACSS is basically BDC reticle with some extra wind holes, and compared to the quick choke style range finding, which is great. I like milliradian based grid and scale reticles. So now they have this Griffin Mill reticle. They showed it last year in something, and they showed it again this year in some other scopes. And the Griffin Mill reticle is basically a nice visible horseshoe in the front focal plane scope with a milliradian type tree or grid, call it what you want, at the bottom of it. And that, I think, is a really good general purpose idea. One of the scopes that had there was a 2.5 to 10 by 44 front focal plane design with locking turrets. So the turrets, kind of like Leupold Nightforce turrets, they lock at zero. It's like a zero lock, whatever. Both windage and elevation are zero lock. Illuminated, side focus, I think side focus. And they'll have the same reticle in a Japanese 1:8. I think so. I've never really done any serious tests on the Primary Arms scopes, but their reticles are extending into the area that I like. And as they do that, I will be testing some, and I think this 2.5 to 10 by 44, which kind of like a designated marksman type scope. I think I'll be looking at that. I'm going to reach out and try to arrange for something this year. Generally, I like to see them kind of clean up the branding a little bit. It makes it easier to figure out what's what is happening where. Good company, good people, they make interesting products, so I like to see innovative things. I went and stopped by Aimpoint. They've got the Acro P1 sight that was in a bunch of Glocks and stuff. I've seen it before at AUSA. The open question is, how does it compare to the existing miniature red dot sights? And it's a little bit bulkier. It looks very robust. Aimpoint stuff's generally well made, but when a bunch of my handguns have Shield miniature sights on them. Where is Shield? I have something on Shield here, and they work. They don't break. Battery lasts for a while. I changed once a year. Hasn't died on me yet. Everything's okay. So why would I choose an Aimpoint Acro P1, which is compact but still bigger and bulkier, over something like a Shield or a Trigicon RMR or something like that? Shield's smaller. Shield RMS and RMSC are smaller. So why would I choose one? It's not that the Acro P1 is a bad choice. It seems like a perfectly reasonable sight, but Is that durability advantage of a covered side, is it a real thing or is it just marketing? I don't know. I can't answer that. But it's something that I think about. Since I mentioned Shield, so it's no secret that I like Shield sides. I have 4. I have 3 Shield RMS sides, and I have a Shield SIS side on a carbine. And on a carbine, it's been basically bulletproof, right? So I'm pretty impressed. So for this year, not too many new things from Shield. Shield made a RMS W compact sight for their handguns. W stands for waterproof. They basically covered up a few things here and there. They showed it last year. Now it's in production. I'll need to think where it might fit. Maybe I'll get one. They're nice sights. And another thing they did, they redesigned a little bit the Shield SIS, the one I use in a carbine. It's a little bit sleeker. Basically, there's some housing changes and some other stuff. They're saying it's even tougher. The Shield SIS that I had, I wrapped it in a towel and spent an hour kicking it around the backyard. Put it back in the gun, didn't budge. So I don't know what they made tougher, but it looks a little bit slicker. So there is something to be said about that. Overall, as far as companies go, I really like Shield for several reasons. One is that all they do right now is red dots. They're growing. They were out of the UK Pavilion this year, had a separate booth on the bottom floor. They're clearly doing well. I recommended Shield RMS, or I generally recommend Shield sights to a ton of people. And I kind of track these things, and people who bought them, per my recommendation, have been happy. Right, so I'm kind of happy about that. I don't. Here's the problem, right? I look at a couple of samples and they look okay, they look good. I recommend them. I really don't know if the product's gonna hold up. You can't determine anything about reliability or customer support or whatever else from just 1 or 2 samples. So when people buy them, for my recommendation, I try to stay in touch and get an idea of whether these are holding up, and these are holding up. There's no question that they're holding up very nicely. And when I talk to the guys at Shield, they talk about their focus on service, their focus on manufacturing quality, their focus on quality control. Not everybody says it. Not everybody says it with such dedication. Like, they want to sell stuff, they're focused on marketing and selling, but I talk to them, they're really, really focused on delivering a good product and supporting it well, and they sort of assume that if they deliver a good product with good support, the product will sell itself. I have a lot of respect for that. Yeah, they're doing a good job. All right, moving on. Bond arms. So Derringers and stuff are not my thing. Besides, in California, I'm not convinced I can own one anymore. But Bond Arms a while back bought the IP from a company called Boberg that makes this really funky. It's a really funky way of doing a semi-auto handgun, where the slide picks up the cartridge on the way back. So you shove them into the magazine nose to the front. But and they're calling it a Bond bullpup. They had a couple of models, slightly shorter, slightly longer barrel. Because of the way it's built, you can put a pretty long barrel in a pretty short handgun. Boberg had some reliability issues. With Bond bullpup, they're saying it's pretty rock solid. And once again, I know a little bit about the guy who runs the company and all that through some mutual acquaintances. He's really not known for bullshitting. So I can't have one in California. Once I get out of here, I'm going to buy one and mess with it. It's pretty comfortable. The grip is good. I like it. It's a steel and wood grip gun. That speaks to me. Is it going to replace my Glock for carry? I don't know about that. Maybe after a while, after I have some confidence in it. But it's a technically clever execution, and like I said, there is a lot to be said about that. Alright, so moving on, what else do we have here? I've got a bunch of notes and notes and brochures and stuff. Let me see, what did I forget? There are several things that are interesting. I went and talked to the guys at Right-On Optics, and kind of interesting company. They seem to be growing. They seem to have the right idea. Most of the stuff is Japanese made. I think it's made by, you gotta be kidding me. Like, the gardener's just parked outside the window here, and I think he's just taking a break. But regardless, the most of the Japanese stuff is, I think, made by Japan Optics Limited, which I think used to be Hakko a long time ago. I don't know if it's good or bad, right? So I'm not hugely familiar with what Japan Optics Limited is doing these days and how good the quality is. So I do not have a good way to ascertain whether it's any good or not. That means I should probably look at it more carefully, but is it abnormal to want to kick your own gardener's ass? I don't know. I will look more carefully at Right-On Optics and see if they're any good. So that's just that. Don't know what to tell you. Speaking of clever things you don't normally run into unless you go to the smaller booths. One of the companies I normally ignore is called Konus. It's an Italian company that makes scopes in China, inexpensive scopes. I've looked at one 8-9 years ago. It was okay, just like any other Chinese scopes. Over the time, they got a lot better now. But it held up, didn't break. I think, give it to my brother-in-law. I think he's still using it. Seems to be doing fine. But they've never really done anything hugely interesting. Well, I walk by now and I see a poster that's kind of interesting. Turns out they stumbled on an idea and patented it for these projected reticles. So they have a scope now that should be in production soon with projected reticles, so you can change designs, etc. And projected reticle not in a way where you're looking through a screen, some better way. I'll look up a patent, I'll figure out what it is. But it looks really good. And it's clearly not very expensive because the scope they showed it in was like 4-16 by 50 or something. It's a basic Chinese scope, and they're saying it's going to go into production in 2-3 months. It's going to be like $400. Well, if you can offer this reticle technology for $400, it can't be that expensive, and they can expand it substantially. I was extremely impressed. It's just not something I normally see too much, right? Let's see what else. Rifle Caddy, that was kind of interesting. So Rifle Caddy is a small Canadian company, I think, that makes this plastic thing to allow to mount 2 rifles on the center console of your truck. They are from Canada, and they were shocked to find out you can't do this kind of stuff in California if you don't want to get your ass dragged to jail. So it is official. California is now more restrictive than Canada. Maybe not entirely, but it's a sad state of affairs. Let's see. What else? So I've talked about Konus and Lunatech. I went to see Kruger Optical. Kind of interesting company. They do a lot of OEM stuff, but it sounds like they'll do a little bit more under their own brand. They make pretty decent stuff. They do a lot of interesting things with carbon fiber. I didn't see anything hugely new, but it's probably worth a little bit more of my attention. And I think that is the bulk of a wrap up in terms of the people I visited. I went and visited Geissele. I used their triggers. Triggers are nicely done. There is Umarex, who have now an optics line they call Axion Optical Solutions. So Axion by itself was not very interesting for me, but they license from Tacom HQ their Terac device, which is basically a wedge, a piece of glass you can flip in front of your scope and shift the zero. So quick way to have a second zero without touching anything else. And it looks like the Umar X version of it is going to be pretty cheap, so I need to get one and see. Let's see what else is in my notes. I talked about all of these guys. Small company I stumbled on called Whoosh Sites. Whoosh means they have weird arrangement of two circles that you're supposed to align. They're pretty proud of it. Didn't make much sense to me, but I'm just a fat Russian guy. What do I know? But I applaud their creativity, and I think that's largely it. So I revisited a few people. I went and looked at the field optics research again, kick-ass tripods. Somebody on Instagram asked me where they're made. So basically like mechanical and stuff, mostly made in the US. The carbon fiber tubes I think they get from China, just like everybody else. And all the final assembly, integration, everything is going to be happening in the US, in Utah. I went and visited ZCO, Zero Compromise Optics again. Last time I was there, the second day of the show, I didn't see Jeff Huber, who I wanted to talk to. He was there this time. Spent some time getting the gist of what they're up to. Nice scopes. I'm happy to see them finally making them. I expect to be looking at one or two this year. That's kind of a welcome introduction into the ultra premium world. I think that's worthwhile. And so Torrey Pines. I posted a picture on Instagram of this another fused integrated device. This is from a company near San Diego called Torrey Pines. They have a brand called Sector Optics, under which this will be marketed, I think. I'm gonna go and talk to them. It's another really clever integration of how to integrate a thermal imager with a laser rangefinder with a day scope. They take a 1:8 second focal plane day scope from, I think it's the same basic OEM that makes a Vortex Strike Eagle, and they integrate it with their own device. The interesting thing about their integration is that it will potentially be suitable for a lot of different scopes. Probably even more importantly is that they have a comparatively low resolution thermal imager, like 160 to 120 by 120, one of the same ones that FLIR has in FLIR 1 or something like that. But they have an infrared zoom lens with the focal length zoom range between 8 and 18 degrees, I think. Yes, yeah. Zoom infrared lenses generally are expensive. These guys are somehow managing to pull it off, so that this whole attachment thing with a scope, with a laser rangefinder, small thermal imager, thermal zoom lens, and a 1:8 scope, and a screen inside, and a little screen inside the field of view of the scope. You look through the eyepiece, there's a normal image, and then there is a thermal image, right? All in your field of view, and plus one more screen in the gadget itself that sits on top of the scope. So this whole thing is going to be like $3.5 grand. I mean, that's a big deal. Okay, so that was interesting. And the hell is he doing? So that is sort of, like I said, that is sort of interesting, and that's been a really big theme for a lot of stuff that I saw at SHOT this year with electro-optics, with the newer things, was that I see a lot of different attempts to fuse a day scope with thermal, or with night vision, or with something. These are the things that I used to work on for my day job 10, 12, 13 years ago, and it was complicated and really expensive. And now it's getting into the under $10,000 range from Steiner, from Torrey Pine, from a bunch of Israeli companies, from a ton of different people. And I can't ignore that. That's a biggie. That is a really big deal. I think we will see more of that. That's one of my takeaways from SHOT Show this year. And now with conventional rifle scopes, so the battle for who is the best is intensifying. Tangentator added a reticle. There's nothing they need to do with their scopes. I think they're still as close to perfect as I've seen. but there's more competition now, right? So there is a Steiner M7, there is a Zero Compromise. There are things out there. Minox is, getting better. It's worth looking at. A bigger battle still is happening under 2000, where Crimson Trace has a full line of products with a lot of them front focal plane. Vortex is getting in there. Razor becoming cheaper. Athlon is there. Delta is there. I met with a guy from Delta Optical. So the Striker now is available with locking turrets, which is kind of cool. I have one here somewhere. I'll put it in the gun and do more pictures with it and shoot it and see if the turrets are okay. The locking turret method looks very similar to me to what EOTech has done with the front focal plane 5-25 Voodoo. The Voodoo is under 2000, right? So that competes for the same basic customer. There is a Trigicon is in there. There's a platinum. There's a platinum primary arms. All of those guys are really going for the same consumer, and we live in a fairly affluent society. Under $2,000 is a lot of people can spend that. And for the people who can't, all of a sudden, out of the blue, under 1,000, I'm seeing multiple credible, decent quality front focal plane scopes for the DMR stuff and for the general precision. Meopta Optica 6 knocked my pants off. I mean, not literally, figuratively. Don't get any bright ideas. I was really impressed. Crimson Trace, the new stuff is getting in there. We'll see how good it is. I'm curious, right? A few other people are right in there. Vortex dropped the price on the PST Gen 2 by $100. For $900 to $1,000, the Vortex PST Gen 2 3015 by 44 is just superb. Burris XTR2 is still there. 2210 is excellent, basically on DMR scope. It's really getting interesting. So I'm gonna look through my notes. I'm gonna do my follow-ups. I need to figure out what I'm going to be reviewing and testing this year. At least one high-end tactical article. At least one. I'm gonna kill that freaking Gardner. At least one mid-range article for the 1500 to 2000 range, and at least one sub 1K article. We'll see how it all pans out. My wife just came home giving me a dirty look. Figures. At least one of each by price. These are very different markets, different requirements, and everybody's getting better. Everybody's learning. The number of high quality, well designed reticles that I saw at this SHOT Show was just overwhelming. Schmidt and Bendra has finally two reticles that I like. I basically ignored them for a few years because I didn't like the reticles. Now there is a grid reticle which looks much better in a scope than it does on paper. And in the new 1-8 there is the MDR T6 reticle, which is very good. So I don't know. All of this stuff is looking fun. I can ramble on for a while, but I think I'm going to wrap up. There's a ton of other things to do and a ton of follow-ups. And stay tuned. I have a ton of images to look at. They will all going to go on Instagram. Dark Lord of Optics on Facebook or Instagram. That's where all the media is going to go. And I'm going to put in some links on my website for all the different SHOT Show stuff. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time.